And what's going on, guys, and welcome back to WCCF Tech TV, and this is Keith again, and today we're going to do something a little bit different in the fact that we're going to take a bunch of parts that we have around the office from reviews and things that were sent to us, as well as some things that I've acquired over time, and we're going to put together a small build around the new AMD Radeon RX 480. We're going to call this build the Lotus. Now, let's start off with the processor that we're going to use. AMD sent this over a while back. This is the FX 6350. We do have it clocked at 4.2 gigahertz by disabling the turbo and just setting the frequency to 4.2 gigahertz. And we've got that powered on the Asus 970 Pro Gaming Aura motherboard. Now, that is a more modern AM3 Plus motherboard, meaning that it has features like NVMe support as well as SLI support on the 970 chipset, including RGB lighting, which is kind of fun, as well as a really good power delivery system, and is a really good value for what the board is to be paired up with something like the FX 6350 with the Wraith cooler. Now, as far as memory, we decided to stick with just 8 gigabytes of Corsair Vengeance low profile 1600 megahertz RAM. But thankfully, due to the motherboard, we were able to clock it up just a little bit to 1866 and maintain the same timings. Our storage solution may sound a little unorthodox in the sense that we didn't go with an SSD. We actually went with a 2 terabyte Seagate SSHD so that we would have a lower cost on the storage department, but still be able to get quicker boot times than you would with standard hard drive. So as you use this drive, the faster it's going to get, especially with boot times and the smaller programs that you use a lot more often, such as your web browsers. Now, the power supply is a little bit hit or miss because we had this already in our stock. It's the Bitfinex Fury 550G. Now, this is a really beautiful power supply in the sense that all of the cables are pre-sleeved. So it's a black cables, fully sleeved from top to bottom. It looks really, really good. The problem is it's out of manufacturing at this point, so I can't recommend this, but I would recommend substituting something like the EVGA 600B power supply. So you get a good solid 600 watt power supply. You're not going to get as good a looking cables, so you're still going to get the colorful rainbow pattern on the ends, but it's going to be a solid power supply, and it's going to be a whole lot less expensive than the 550G if you find one even available. Now, for the graphics card, we do have the XFX RX 484 gigabyte edition. Now, again, the reason we went with this one, even for the initial review, which you can find a link to in the description below, is the fact that it was $199. So it's very cost effective along with the rest of the parts that were picked for this build. Now, to house it, we use the Cooler Master MasterBox 5 White Edition that we just did a video on talking about that, as well as an article, and we'll link to that in a card above me in the description below, so you can find that. Now, what does all this run you? This total build comes in just right around $700 and a little bit lower if you get some of the parts on sale. So ours cost slightly over $700 because of the Bitfinex Fury power supply, but we paired it up with the Nixius View 24A monitor. Now, in my recommendation, if you were to go for the Nixius View, I would recommend taking a look at the B model because it has a different base that doesn't have the full adjustability, but it will save you quite a bit of money, bringing that monitor down to $250 or less, depending on whether it's on sale or not. Now you're looking at $950 for the whole build, so less than a full $1,000, and you can even throw in a mouse and keyboard combo for $40 from Cooler Master with the Devastator 2 combo, which we've got a review coming up soon for that. So that's $40, so now you're at $990, so less than $1,000 for the full build, top to bottom. And you could argue speakers, whatever. The monitor does have speakers built in. I don't really recommend them, but you can get some speakers, whatever you want. Now, all of this means nothing if it doesn't perform. So what we're doing for performance numbers, we're actually comparing this setup to our workstation, which is extremely asinine, but it's using the same video card in both of them, just to show you the performance disparity between this budget or mid-range budget build versus a high-end workstation using the same video card. Now, the workstation is using an i7 6800K at stock clocks with an Asus X99A2 motherboard, 32 gigs of Corsair Vengeance LPX DDR4 2400 megahertz RAM with a Corsair with a Cooler Master V1200 Platinum power supply and a Cooler Master Case 5. Yeah, it's a little lopsided, but the point here is to show the performance of this lower cost build versus a much more expensive build with the same video card. So with all of that out of the way, and before we look at the numbers, just note that because this isn't a full review, we're not going super in depth with the results. We're just going to show you the average and the 1% low frame rates, just to give you an idea of performance metrics. So we'll jump into there, take a look at those numbers, and catch you guys back at the conclusion. So in the end, you can see that the performance disparity between the 6350 setup and the 6800K setup, while the 6800K was a bit faster, you've got to consider the fact that that processor, motherboard, and the RAM cost the same amount, or actually cost about $100 more than the entire FX build. So that's not a whole lot more performance for a whole lot more money. Now, there are places where you would want to go that 6800K route, but this route, I would personally prefer to save the money, lose a little bit of FPS, pick up the FreeSync monitor, and get a much smoother experience. But that's all we have for this one. Now, what would be interesting to see is in the comments below, toss us your opinions on a parts list for the same price category, and we'll take a look at what everybody comes up with. Now, this isn't a definitive list. This isn't me saying, if you have $700, this is what you should build. This is parts we had, we put together, that's what they ended up costing, and would like to see what you guys would come up with down in the comments section. So this has been Keith with WCCF Tech TV. Feel free to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you all in the next video.